Hello and welcome. You're watching UTV Live at 6.
Good evening. These are the headlines.
Is there a row brewing in the executive after the DUP says it's going to challenge a Sinn Féin minister's decision to install Irish language signs at Belfast's Grand Central Station?
There are legitimate questions to be asked about this particular decision, not least the cost of it.
Caught on camera. Never before seen footage of a killer gang filmed just seconds after they murdered Ian Ogle in East Belfast.
And fears patients are being put at risk with a report claiming almost 20% of health service imaging equipment is obsolete.
Also tonight, it's the magnificent Murphys. We tackle coach Richie and his son Jack about standing up for the Ulster men.
And it's been fine and settled for the last few days, but is this weather here to stay? Well, join me later in the programme for the full details of your forecast.
Is the executive about to become embroiled in a row over the Irish language? The DUP Deputy First Minister has told the Assembly that she plans to raise questions at this week's executive meeting about a Sinn Féin ministerial decision to install Irish language signs at Belfast's Grand Central Station.
Last week, the Infrastructure Minister, Liz Kimmins, announced a plan which is set to cost in the region of £150,000. At the weekend, the DUP leader, Gavin Robinson, warned his party has put down a marker that it will block Sinn Féin spending money on what he described as pet projects. Here's our political correspondent, Vicky Hawthorne.
Less than a week ago, Irish language campaigners were at Stormont. They blamed the DUP for blocking funding for a cross-border Irish language promotion body, Forest na Gaeilge. The DUP insists that is not the case, that there is a balance in the funding between Stormont and the Irish government. But the party is unhappy with plans announced by the Sinn Féin Infrastructure Minister Liz Kimmins to introduce dual language signs at Belfast's new Grand Central Station at a cost of £145,000.
There are legitimate questions to be asked about this particular decision, not least the cost of it, but also in terms of the local community consultations and arrangements that were in place and how this appears to have absolutely ridden roughshod over that. So of course, these are legitimate questions and I will continue to ask them. And as said, I will be raising this in the Executive on Thursday.
Meanwhile, the TUV has lodged a petition in the Assembly to force the decision to a vote.
Words are not enough. It's time for unionism to unitedly take a stand for the loyalists and unionists of South Belfast. I'm not precious about how this is done. Whether it is stopped by way of the petition I lodged or by way of the unionist ministers calling it into the executive and blocking it, I simply do not care.
Once again, the issue of the Irish language is creating frustration.
Surely it is in no one's interest to manufacture another crocodile moment. There is far too much work to be done.
It's understood there could be a legal challenge to the Infrastructure Minister's decision. The department has said, given the potential legal proceedings, it would not be appropriate to comment further at this stage. However, Sinn Féin does not appear to be overly concerned about the DUP's plans to bring the issue to the executive.
Unfortunately, some people can't move beyond some of the sentiments we've heard in recent days about the Irish language. People just need to be more relaxed about it. It's a language for everyone. It does not present a threat to anyone. So I think if people just need to be a bit more relaxed about these things.
The promotion of the Irish language is an old argument at Stormont, but it's emerging again in a new mandate. The question is, can the parties deal with what has been a divisive issue in the past differently this time round? Vicky Hawthorne, UTV Live, Stormont.
Well, let's cross live now to Stormont and join our political editor, Tracy McGee. Tracy, how big a row is this?
Well, Paul, I think the difficulty is that when we hear the words Irish language and Northern Ireland executive, we all are conditioned to brace for impact. And certainly history has shown that there have been full-scale rows over this matter. There are clearly disagreements here. The DUP are annoyed at the way this has been done. But watching that debate today, I was very struck by the fact that Emma Little-Pengelly, well, she said that she wants to bring this up in the executive. She was quite balanced about what she said. There were no pointed questions from the DUP backbenchers, which is nearly always a sign that the party is very riled up. And more importantly, there was no angry response coming from Sinn Féin. So I think at the moment we're in the realms of a minor local difficulty as opposed to a full-scale crisis. That said, and here's the health warning, never underestimate our political party's ability to turn a disagreement into a full-scale debacle.
So how have we arrived at this point?
Well, I think what really set tongues wagging was that email from the DUP leader in which he talked about putting down a marker that the DUP would not be allowing public money to be used for what he said were Sinn Féin pet projects. That's quite incendiary language. Now, I spoke to Gavin Robinson today as part of a wide-ranging interview which he's done with View from Stormont, marking the fact that he's a year as leader of the party. Now, it's pretty clear that he's annoyed about this, but he's talking about wanting answers. He's not talking about blocking this. He's not talking about walking out of the executive. Let's hear some of what he had to say.
A new minister has come in. She's decided for herself, seemingly in the absence of suitable engagement on equality grounds or suitable engagement with TransLink, who have operational responsibility for Grand Central Station, would respond to a whim or a desire. In the face of all agreements and discussions and all that had gone before, that can't be right. And when you engage in this consideration to think that that is politically controversial and significant, then I think it is appropriate that my colleagues in the executive raise that.
Finally, how would you describe the mood at Stormont?
Well, I think there's a fair degree of nettle around all of this, a fair degree of annoyance about it all. But no sense of tension, no sense of an imminent threat to devolution. Tracy McGee, thank you. And you heard Tracy mention Gavin Robinson's interview for View from Stormont. It's on tonight's programme. Plus, we examine how the Chancellor's benefit cuts will impact thousands of people here. We'll also be speaking to the Finance Minister, John O'Dowd. That's View from Stormont, 10:45 tonight, here on UTV.
Previously unseen footage obtained by UTV shows the gang which murdered Belfast man Ian Ogle fleeing the scene in the aftermath of the vicious 30-second attack.
The father of two was beaten and stabbed 11 times just yards from his home in the east of the city in January 2019. 5 men were sentenced for his murder earlier this month. Nathan Hanna has this exclusive report.
Minutes after murder. These are the chilling moments after 5 men had beaten and stabbed Ian Ogle, leaving him for dead. This CCTV released to this programme helping catch the killers. Weapons, including a baton and a large knife, visible in their hands. Pastor Kevin Sambrook remembers that night all too well.
So what we're seeing here is the perpetrators of that brutal murder leaving the scene. I'm praying with Ian before me, and I'm thinking of the horrible trauma and pain and grief that the family are going to experience. Horrific. What I witnessed, Nathan, was their courage. A difficult thing to come to terms with. Sudden, brutal, Ian's no longer there, he's not coming back. And to see them navigate that in such a brave way was an inspiration to all of us. But I think it had left a trauma and a scar within the community. Obviously levels of anger were very, very deep at the time. But there seemed to have been, from my observation, a very measured response. There were no further occurrences of violence that could well have happened. So I think the community needs the credit that it deserves for that.
This is where the CCTV was captured. This isn't far from where the attack happened. Mr. Ogle was attacked near his Cluan Place home back in January 2019. During sentencing this month, the judge said there were a number of significant aggravating factors in this case. They included that this was a pre-planned murder and a revenge vigilante attack. This month, the gang responsible was jailed for a total of 95 years for murder. Walter Irvine, who's 43, 42-year-old Robert Spears, 38-year-old Glenn Rainey, 46-year-old Mark Sewell, and Jonathan Brown, who's 39, were all handed sentences ranging from 17.5 years to 20 years behind bars. East Belfast MP Gavin Robinson, who supported the family's campaign, welcomes the conclusion of the case.
It has been a long journey. As we know, a number of people did plead guilty, but others didn't. And so justice took time, but I'm glad that there has now been some closure in that process.
In a statement to UTV, Ian Ogle's family said, "We are finally relieved our fight for justice has come to an end. Our sole focus was to get justice for Ian, and we are content that that has been achieved, so Ian did not die in vain, and now he can rest in peace." Nathan Hanna, UTV Live.
According to a new report by the Northern Ireland Audit Office, almost 20% of the health services imaging equipment is effectively obsolete as health trusts continue to struggle to meet demand for potentially life-saving scans.
The out-of-date equipment, along with workforce pressures, could result in an increased risk of diseases being missed. Well, here's our health reporter, Deborah McAleese. Deborah.
We are talking about life-saving equipment for MRI, CT and ultrasound scans. This imaging equipment helps diagnose conditions like cancer, stroke and heart disease, and it can detect damage to bones and internal organs. But according to the Audit Office, 16% of the health services imaging equipment is effectively obsolete because it is more than 10 years old. Now, the Department of Health has admitted that this older equipment would ideally be replaced at a quicker rate, but insisted that it remains safe and fit for purpose. But Auditor General Doreen Carville has pointed out that older equipment can be potentially slower, reducing the number of patients which can be scanned and may produce lower quality images, meaning an increased risk of missed disease. The report has also flagged up a very worrying gap between demand for imaging services and capacity due to absence of funding, resources and workforce shortages. Just look at these statistics. Between 2018 and 2024, 350,000 fewer scans were delivered than what was required to meet demand. Over the same period, the number of patients on waiting lists for imaging grew from 50,500 to almost 80,000. That's a rise of 56%. And the number of patients waiting longer than 2 weeks for a red flag suspected cancer scan has increased five-fold from 260 cases to almost 1,800. The report has also raised concern over workforce challenges, saying that if they are left unaddressed, it could further undermine service delivery and that the number of current consultant radiologist training places needs to be doubled to meet current demand. But with funding shortfalls, the proportion of older equipment will inevitably increase further and workforce challenges will remain.
A coroner has ruled that the death of a man who crashed into a lorry on the A5 in March last year was not caused by the road.
30-year-old Caolan Devlin died at the scene following the collision outside Omagh. Sarah O'Kane reports.
Caolan Devlin died here on the A5 outside Omagh last year when his car collided with a lorry. Today, the coroner ruled he could find no defect with the road or heavy goods vehicle which caused or contributed to the 30-year-old's death. The inquest heard Mr Devlin suffered a cardiac incident caused by the excessive use of cocaine in the hours prior to him hitting the lorry head-on. The talented hurler from the Coal Island area was travelling along the Kerr Road between Omagh and Ballygolly on the 5th of March when the crash happened. He tragically died at the scene. Joe McCriskin acknowledged the controversial nature of the A5 but told the inquest the cause of death was not the road. I am satisfied that while behind the wheel of his BMW, Mr Devlin suffered some sort of cardiac problem caused, I am satisfied, by excessive use of cocaine. Since 2007, over 50 people have been killed on the road. A fresh legal challenge against plans to build a £1 billion dual carriageway from Ballygolly to Strabane has been launched in the High Court. many families, including Caelan's brother, are calling for the A5 project to go ahead. A judge is set to decide whether or not the Infrastructure Minister's decision to proceed with the scheme back in October was lawful. Today, during the inquest, the coroner warned that cocaine is a very highly dangerous drug and that the death rate from it has risen by 1,000% during the past 10 years. Sarah O'Kane, UTV Live.
A Northern Ireland man has spoken about his fear that his Bangkok home would collapse as the Myanmar earthquake struck the building.
Johnny McLean has lived in Southeast Asia for the past 30 years with his wife, a teacher. Here's Barbara McCann.
Friday's earthquake has killed almost 2,000 people. But as international rescue efforts continue, complicated by the civil war there, the death toll is expected to rise in the state. Hundreds of miles from the epicentre, the tremors were felt in Bangkok, where dramatic footage captured the collapse of a skyscraper under construction. Johnny McLean was unaware at first what was happening when he felt his home swaying back and forth.
It was like it was in the wave pool, you know, in a leisure centre. And I thought, wow, am I, you know, having some kind of a health issue, you know, high blood pressure, heart attack. Then my wife texted me to say, get out of the house. It's an earthquake.
Johnny spoke of the initial panic as Bangkok reacted to the tremors and people were told to get out of high-rise buildings.
Bangkok literally came to a halt. We have a SkyTrain system, 8 lines of SkyTrain, and including the airport link, all went down. The subway system went down. The whole place was just gridlocked. People were trying to get back home to their loved ones. People were just panicked.
As Bangkok copes with the after effects of the tremors, Johnny's thoughts turn to friends he is still unable to make contact with.
Another friend who lives closer to Mandalay, I've texted him and had no response back. So we just hope that he's fine.
Barbara McCann, UTV Live.
Now, still to come, it's going to be a cup cracker as holders Cliftonville and Dungannon score places in the Irish Cup final.
And the Murphys make their mark at Ulster, with Jack blazing a trail on the pitch and his dad Richie turning around a difficult season. So do stay with us. Welcome back to UTV Live with Paul and Rose. Time now to look at tonight's ITV news at 6:30.
And here's Mary Nightingale.
Coming up on the ITV Evening News, rescue teams race to find any more survivors of the Myanmar earthquake. There is some hope as people are still being found alive amidst the rubble, but the true scale of the devastation is still unknown in both Myanmar and neighbouring Thailand. Here's Keir Starmer meets the makers of the hit TV show Adolescence, but will it lead to greater regulation online? And we're with the British wrestlers, hoping to make it to America's billion-dollar show, WWE. Will you join me for those stories and more at 6:30?
But right now, it's time for sport.
And here's Ruth.
The game is heating up. John Mulholland Motors, sponsors of UTV Sport.
Good evening. This year's Irish Cup final will see holders Cliftonville take on Dungannon Swifts on May the 3rd at Windsor Park. Dungannon Swifts defeated Bangor 2-0 to book a place in the decider for the first time since 2007. And you can see just what that meant to them. Holders Cliftonville made it back-to-back finals after a 3-0 victory over Ards.
It didn't really bother me last year in terms of everyone talking about it. I was new to the place, so I was very determined. The players were very determined. If you look at our path to the final last year, where we had to play 4 Premiership clubs, put it down a Premiership club in Waiting, it was a pretty tough route. This year's been exactly the same because you're defending champions. You have to go there and present yourself every game. And we've done that, and we deserve to be in the final. There's no question about that. And we'll go and talk about, again, at the start of this year, we talked about defending the Irish Cup and doing it proud, and we've done that.
Brilliant performance, professional performance, to be honest. We didn't take guards lightly, and we knew they would put up a really stern game for us. They set in, really hard to break down, but when you have Joe Corney up front, anything's possible. Any trophy I win with Clinville, whether I'm lifting it or I'm not lifting it, is special. And we created history last season, beating Linfield in the Irish Cup final. We want to go one better and make it 2 in a row. We really want to cement our names in the history books of Clinville.
And this is what it meant to Stuart McCluskey on his 200th cap. Ulster are up to 6th place in the URC table after a 38-34 victory over the Stormers. Richie Murphy's side were 17-0 down after 8 minutes, but turned the game around to record 3 consecutive wins for the first time this season. Ulster's fly half Jack Murphy was awarded Player of the Match, so it was a proud night for father and son. Jack Murphy proved age is just a number. He was the youngest player on the pitch against the Stormers, but the 20-year-old proved one of the most influential, walking away with the Player of the Match award.
When you're out on the pitch, you have to be as old as anyone really in the way that you play. So I knew coming in that I'm obviously a young guy, so just try to get my voice out there and establish myself within the group is exactly what the lads want, especially from our pack, giving them the right direction. So. It feels good when you have Stu outside. He's 200 caps and John inside me. So I'm surrounded by experience who won't let me go too far astray. So
Murphy has been the favoured number 10 in recent weeks and plays under his dad Richie, who was the former Ireland kicking coach.
Yeah, massive. Obviously, since I was a young guy, he's been kicking with me, and we've watched a lot of rugby growing up and stuff together. So yeah, he's helped me out a lot, obviously. And then last year in the under-20s, obviously, and being my coach, I kind of got an understanding of how he wants to play and stuff. So my brother as well would have helped me out when I was younger, training together. So it was a good household, I guess, to grow up in terms of rugby. Growing up admiring, I would have Johnny Sexton, obviously, and I think you can't go too far wrong with a role model like that. But when you see how they work every day, and even the lads here, when I've come up early, I've seen how they work so hard every day. It makes you want to work that hard as well, so you can be a part of it.
So what's it like being the head coach's son?
He's pretty good at home. Comes home and tries to switch off a little bit. So yeah, no, it's good. I try to get all the rugby chat out when we're here in Kingspan, and then when we go home, try to keep family life,
Like father, like son so far. Ireland are up to 3rd in the Six Nations table after a 54-12 victory over Italy yesterday. Anna McGann was the hat-trick hero for the visitors in Parma as Ireland put their opening round defeat to France well and truly behind them. They have a week off now before hosting England in Cork.
It was such a team performance from the start to the very finish. I think we showed real resilience at times, especially just at the end of our first half, keeping them out from our try line for about 5 minutes. So yeah, it's just an unbelievable feeling to rewrite the past here in Parma, and it's a new era for us.
A great win. Now remember this man, this is County Down caddy Bo Martin, who of course helped Shane Laurie win the Open back in 2019. Well, he's still proving a huge success as he assisted Australia's Mingwoo Lee to his first PGA Tour win at the Houston Open last night. Rory McIlroy finished 5 shots behind after his best score of the week, a 64. His round included an eagle and 6 birdies as he prepares for next week's Masters.
Yeah, still feel like I've got some stuff to work on. Still don't think my game is absolutely 100% under the control I would want, but it's nice to have a week to work on some things. I've got my coach Michael Bannon coming in tomorrow, so we'll be working at home and making sure game feels good going into the Masters.
Can't wait. Finally, in ice hockey, the Belfast Giants lost 5-1 against Manchester yesterday. The Giants will clinch the league if they defeat Nottingham twice next weekend. That's your sport. Bye for now.
The game is heating up. John Mulholland Motors, sponsors of UTV Sport.
Looks like spring has definitely arrived with another lovely day, and people were out and about enjoying the milder weather at Belfast City Hall earlier.
And we hear the fine weather is set to continue. Aisling, tell us more.
Yes, it has been a lovely few days, and despite any cloud out there, temperatures have still been above average for the time of year. But let's just take a look at the bigger picture to see what the pressure pattern is doing, just to see how settled the weather is going to get through this week. So high pressure in charge of the weather. Now, the orientation of that high is out to the east. That means if we trace our isobars back, they go all the way back to continental Europe, and the continent really is warming up at the moment. That's what's going to keep those temperatures above average for the time of year. But lots of details to get through in the forecast. Here you go.
When it's unpredictable outside, you can rely on the comforts of home. UTV weather, sponsored by the Grant Arona R290 heat pump.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the weather in a little bit more detail. There was some blue sky around today, but equally there was a lot of cloud around earlier. That cloud was thick enough just to give the odd spot of rain, but for most it's been dry, and for the rest of the week we're in for a settled week of weather. But that means it's quite chilly first thing in the morning. Overall it's remaining dry, high pressure in charge of the weather, and we're going to see plenty of sunshine around as well. So let's just take a look as we head through the rest of this evening and overnight. Sunny spells turning into clear spells. Enough breeze out there to help prevent a widespread frost from forming, but temperatures still dropping back tomorrow morning to around 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. Now, in more sheltered spots, they may get close to freezing, but very quickly at the moment, those daytime temperatures are starting to pick up. So the main difference with tomorrow morning is that there's going to be much more in the way of sunshine around from very first thing in the morning. So a dry day to come on Tuesday, lots of sunshine, still a little breezy out there, and that breeze is taking the edge off how it feels along eastern coastal areas, but overall temperatures still well above average, highs of around 14 to 15 degrees Celsius, and it's possible in 1 or 2 spots it will climb higher than this. And it's fine and settled as well across the rest of Ireland. Lots of sunshine around and just a little bit of cloud bubbling up into the afternoon. And here temperatures are above average as well. Highs were around 15 degrees Celsius. Normally at this time of year we'd expect temperatures to be somewhere between around 10 or 11 degrees Celsius. And through the rest of the outlook, well, there's very little change in the forecast. Temperatures day on day remaining above average for the time of year. Lots of sunshine to come. We're going to hang on to that southeasterly breeze and always just a little bit chilly first thing in the morning. Take care.
UTV weather, sponsored by the Grant Arona R290 heat pump.
That's the way it is in Northern Ireland this Monday tea time. Tori Watson will have the next local bulletin at 10:30.
The ITV News continues now with Mary Nightingale. But from Paul and me and everyone here at UTV, have a good evening.
Good evening.